fighting stance in knife fighting is different than hand-to-hand combat. You always want to keep the knife up front. If you're right-handed, obviously you're going to have a right lead. If you're left-handed, you're going to have a left lead. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to step one step forward. Again, as an Agana practitioner, I expect you to go forward and not go backward. Body language going backward is telling him you're scared. If you're coming in, you're jamming in, and it's more of an intimidation, and you will always dominate by intimidate your opponent. So I'm going to take one walking step forward. The walking step is there because I don't have to think about it, and it's instinctive. As soon as I did so, I am going to rotate myself just a little bit, and I'm going to pick my rear heel up. My rear heel is important that it is up. It is my spring load. In other words, this is how I'm going to generate my motion as far as my footwork is concerned. I want to keep a distribution of 50-50. In other words, I don't want to lean forward and all my weight is up front, and I definitely don't want to lean back and then I lose that heel being up. I want to be 50-50, nice and comfortable. My hand is going to go up that the knife is in front of my chest. I don't want the knife in front of my face. If I put the knife in front of my face, as human beings, we're going to see sharp here and scenario. In other words, the person that's attacking you is going to look all blurry. I want to have a very sharp image of the attacker that's attacking me in front of me. So the knife is in front of my chest. I keep it 90 degree. My hand is 90 degree out. I don't have the knife like this and then I'm collapsing. The knife is out and the blade is in a 45 degree angle facing my opponent. My other hand is going to be in front of my neck. Not down here, definitely not here. I want to protect my neck at all costs. Because he has a knife, the neck is the place that I need to protect the most in the knife fight. If he cuts me in my forearms, he cuts me in my shoulder, I'll survive. He cuts me in my neck, in my throat, I'm dead. So I'm going to put my hand right here, right in front of my neck. This is your fighting stance. There is no other fighting stance in knife fighting. Every time you fight, you're going to have to find yourself here. Every time you move around, you're going to have to reposition here. Okay, given the fact that you got it in a proper fighting stance and you have a proper grip on the knife, now you're ready to move. The first set of footwork will be going forward. When I go forward, I'm going to generate the energy of going forward with the rear heel. In other words, I'm going to push off from the rear heel. Whatever I push off, I'm going to take a step and close the gap. I don't drag my footwork. In other words, I'm not moving this foot first. The first thing I'm moving is pushing off. This is going to spring load my footwork. In other words, I'm going to have a little jilt into it and it's going to kind of supercharge my motion. If I drag my footwork, just like it sounds, it's a dragging motion, it's much slower. Everything upstairs remains the same. It remains the same. In other words, I'm moving forward, but I'm not moving anything upstairs for no apparent reason. I'm here, moving forward. Moving forward. It is important that you don't make big steps. If you make big step, that is considered a lunge. If I have an opponent with a knife that lunges at me and I cut the angle on him and I counter, it's impossible for him in mid-lunge to change his attack. You're better off to go 1-2 little steps than one big step and realize that you made a mistake. So everything you do has to be loose, nice, coming in. Again, in, and coming back in. Anytime we go forward, it's considered offensive. Every time I'm going to go forward, I consider myself engaging. Okay, later on we're going to apply the technique with the footwork and put it together. But anytime you're going forward, you're attacking. Anytime you're going backward, you're defending. Again. Okay, now I'm going to have to go backward. Going backward is different. I'm in my fighting stance and I decided tactically to back up. In other words, either I'm overwhelmed with whatever's coming in or either the situation dictates that I need to pull back. On this one, I am going to have to pull my front leg first. In other words, my front leg has to clear first. If I push my back leg first, what happens is I keep this as a target, and later on you're going to see that the front leg is going to become a target in knife fighting. In other words, I'm going to have to clear all my front backward in one motion. That will be done by doing what I call a half pendulum. I am going to come back by pendulum myself, half pendulum. It's called a half pendulum because a full pendulum technically is 1, 2. And that looks like I'm dancing, and I'm not wearing a pink leotard in this video series, so I'm not getting into dancing. In other words, I'm coming backward with a half pendulum right here. Again, now if I break it down slow, what I'm basically doing is I'm bringing my front leg to meet my back leg and then collapsing my weight and reposition. So two things are happening here. I have my physique or my mechanics of my body doing 1, 2, and I have the weight distribution of 50-50 becoming 100% in the center and redistributing 50-50 again. So you got two things working at the same time. Basically, you're supercharging your speed. In other words, it's the mechanics and the weight distribution that allows me to move faster. Again, I'm here and coming back here. Again, here and coming back here. All right, throughout this series, you're going to hear me talking about a clock strategy. The clock strategy follows that Carlos, in relationship to me, is at 12 o'clock, and I'm the center of the clock. So here will be 3 o'clock, here will be 9 o'clock, and right behind me will be 6 o'clock. So you're looking 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 6 o'clock. A lot of times you'll hear me say, I'm going to move into 2 o'clock. That will be for me to position myself according to the relationship between the both of us. So you got 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. You got 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Most of the time throughout the video series, I'm going to use the hours that are towards this half of the clock. A couple of them will go towards the back, but most of the time it'll be either 1 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Each one of those hours have a relationship to right and left. 1 o'clock is the same thing as 11 o'clock, just it's on the right or left side. 2 o'clock is same thing as 10 o'clock, just right side, left side, and finally 3 and 9. Okay, this brings us to techniques. You have 3 techniques that you can do with a knife systematically. You can slash, basically you're cutting through. When you slash, it will be done with this part of the knife, right here, the top part of the knife, and the slash is generating from the wrist. In other words, from the wrist, it's the generation of the penetration. You have the stabs. You have the stabs. Basically stabbing, you're taking the dagger part of the knife and sticking into the target that you will choose. When we stab in the diagonal system, it's like a poke. I'm trying to create a hole as fast as possible and reposition out. And finally, you have the blocks. The blocks will be me stopping what's coming from his incoming side with this part of the knife. So if he's coming with the knife, I will be blocking with the knife right here. If I violate that and I block with this, it'll penetrate. Am I going to slash him? Yes, but he will penetrate. So again, I got the slashes, I got the stabs, and I got the block. That brings us to the pyramid concept of attacks and slashes and stabs. All right, the pyramid is a tool that we use to train a practitioner how to use the slashes and how to use the stabs and combinations as well. Pyramid works that there will be a square in front of you about 3 feet by 3 feet right in front of you. Imagine a square right in front of you. You take that square and you cut it in half with a diagonal. You take that square and cut it in half with a diagonal across. You cut it in half with a horizontal, and you cut it in half with a vertical. So basically you just created a square that is cut into a pyramid motion. That is the diagram I am going to use as far as me attacking. Now for learning purposes, you're using a big pyramid. We call this a pyramid because it's like you're looking at the bottom of a pyramid, and in relation to me, the pyramid is going out. All right? In the beginning, it's going to be a big pyramid. As you get better and tighter, you're going to make a smaller pyramid. And finally, you're going to make it the size of the target you're attacking. And we'll show you in a second in relationship to your opponent. Okay, the first techniques you're going to have following that pyramid are the slashes. Now, the reason why the pyramid is big in the beginning is for muscle memory programming. In other words, you're learning the techniques, and usually when you learn a big technique, you're going to ingrain it into your muscle memory. So I'm getting into my fighting stance, I'm getting my grip of the knife properly. I'm going to follow the lines that are on that pyramid. The first one will be a slash down. In other words, I'm slashing down. That is considered first angle in the pyramid, right here, slash down. Now I can travel on that line upward as well. 1, 2. So that line has two traveling routes, 1 and 2. Second one will be the other diagonal. That will be considered the second angle. Again, I can travel down and I can travel up. So I got down and up. It is important that every time you slash with the blade. In other words, when I went this way, blade was facing my opponent. When I go upward, I'm going to have to turn the blade and go with the blade. Don't go this way, you're going to end up getting stuck or basically raking him instead of cutting him. So same thing. This is 1, this is 2. And of course you can travel down, up, and down. Then you got to cross. You got to cross from this side and you got to cross from this side. So that will be considered angle 3, angle 4. All right? Finally, you got downward, upward. So altogether you have 8 lines of slashes. Diagonal down, diagonal up, diagonal up, diagonal down. Horizontal to this side, horizontal to this side, down and up. 8 lines of slashes. Now, as you practice your slashes, you're going to follow those lines. The reason for that is if you attack according to those lines, you're never going to get stuck with your knife. Human flesh is flexible. Muscle is flexible. Skin is flexible. If you start doing like round motion on skin, you're going to get stuck. The skin get all tangled up and you can't cut through. As long as you follow this technology of slashes, you're going to slash through up to the bone. In other words, the slash will penetrate. You're going to go through the skin, through the what we call soft tissue organs, the veins, the muscles, the skin, the fat. You're going to go right through it up to the bone. If you start doing any Picasso motion, in other words, round motion, it's not going to work. So every time you slash, you're going to follow those lines of that pyramid. Now, as you get better, of course, you're going to start tightening up because I don't want to exaggerate my motion and travel negative. Travel negative means as long as the blade is going to my target, it's considered positive. As soon as I'm done cutting and I continue traveling, that's considered negative. Anytime I'm in negative, he can collapse me by either trapping me or by simply attacking me with his knife. I want to cut down the negative. In other words, I want to have as less negative as possible because that's the weakness of the motion. Therefore, when you make the pyramid smaller, there is less negative. And finally, you make it to the size of a target. Next, you will have 9 points of stabs using that same pyramid. If you look at the diagram where the lines are meeting, there's going to be 1 point in this corner, 1 point here, 1 point here, 1 point here, down corner, 1 point here, 1 point here, and 1 point here. That makes 8 on the outside and 1 point of connection over all the lines in the center. 9 points of stabs. Now, every time I stab, and this is why we call this a pyramid concept, I'm going to stab inward the pyramid. In other words, if I'm taking the top corner here, I'm going to stab this way, not this way. If I end up stabbing this way, you're going to see in relationship to an opponent, I end up slashing versus stabbing. Right now, I'm working on